Man, I want to ask you something Columbus Short said since we talking about that. He
Sure.
said he got some heat for saying that black men are dating outside their race because most black women are raised by single mothers and absentee fathers and taught a don't need a man mentality. What are your thoughts on
Well,
that?
here's what I would say to my brother Columbus Short, and I'm a fan of his. Are we not all victims of the systemic oppression and injustice that racism has introduced into our community? So just as you have black women who didn't grow up with their father, you have black men who didn't grow up with their fathers or their mothers.
Welcome back, everybody. Got another interesting clip for us today to break down. Dr. Umar. Dr. Umar is always controversial to me. And we're going to get into the why. Dr. Umar in this clip, as I showed earlier, he seems like he can perfectly understand racism. He seems like he has a very good grasp on racism and the effects of racism. But when it comes to misogyny, misogynoir, and sexism, he is completely clueless. And he is not alone. We could say this is most men. I mean, we could say this is black men, but I can say this is most men in general because I've had discussions with white men, and when we talk about racism, they understand like certain things are taboo. They understand how to avoid they know how to mask their racism without a doubt. They understand like there's certain things they can't say. But when it comes to sexism, when it comes to misogyny, those very same men, same as Dr. Umar, they will say things that are very misogynistic and not be able to clock it. Like they'll say it as if it's just like, oh yeah, no, that's what it is because it's about a woman. And we know that in this society, you can get away with much more misogynoir and misogyny than you can racism. But let's get into this clip. It's really interesting. I'm very interested in breaking this one down for you guys. I'm really excited.
Man, I want to ask you something Columbus Short said since we talking about that.
Sure.
He said he got some heat for saying that black men are dating outside their race because most black women are raised by single mothers and absentee fathers and taught a don't need a man mentality. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's what I would say to my brother Columbus Short, and I'm a fan of his. Are we not all victims?
Red flag number one. You're a fan of a man that is accused of putting his hands and feet up and down all types of women, black women, non-black women, doesn't matter, but women. You see what I'm saying? Like, so here's what I'm saying. First red flag. So Umar, I don't think Umar wouldn't be a fan of Columbus Short if Columbus Short was racist. Obviously, I don't, Umar touts himself as like not a fan of white people in general. The vibe that I get from him, that's his shtick at least. But if Columbus has proven to be anti-black, but the way that Umar can just say it with his whole chest that this anti-black, very misogynistic man that he's a fan of his is amazing to me. He is literally allegedly Columbus is a abuser. He's a woman abuser, right? It's like well documented at this point. So how can you say like you're a fan of a person who on record is an abuser, as far to my knowledge, right? You just openly, I'm a fan of his, of Columbus. Columbus Short is not, I can understand if you said that about, I don't know, Ice Cube or Denzel Washington or something like that. Somebody with like an actual, like, a track record of good, good art or whatever the case may be. Columbus Short is a mediocre actor. Where's the fan coming from? Why are you a fan of his? Like, because to me, it sounds personal. Like you're a fan of him. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's different to say you're a fan of somebody's art and it comes out that they're problematic. Okay, we do that all the time. But you're a fan of his? Why? What has he done to earn your fanhood? Not understanding. So that was the first red flag for me. That was very telling of what was to come.
To my brother Columbus Short, and I'm a fan of his. Are we not all victims of the systemic oppression and injustice that racism has introduced into our community? So just as you
Black men love talking about racism, by the way. We love it. We love talking about racism because we feel racism affects us and we don't see how the other systems of oppression affect us. Like we don't talk about capitalism as much, and we don't talk about sexism, and we don't talk about misogyny or misogyny or any of that stuff. But we love talking about racism. Black men love talking about racism, even more than white women, even more than black women. I hear more black men talking about racism than black women talking about racism.
Have black women who didn't grow up with their father. You have black men who didn't grow up with their fathers or their mothers. In other words, why is it acceptable for the black man raised by a black woman without his dad to reject a black woman raised by her mother without her dad? I think sometimes black men can be guilty of a double standard where we want a perfect offering when we ourselves are not a perfect offering. And to that point, I think
now this is when it goes off the rails because outside of the comment he made about Columbus being a fan of Columbus, everything else he said right now sounds reasonable to me, right? I think it's going to sound reasonable to most of you guys too. But listen, this is when it goes completely off the rails.
Black men need to recognize the fact that one of the reasons we have so much conflict with black women is because we don't operate on a masculine platform with our women all the time. We tend to operate on a female platform. For example, when a woman gets angry,
we tend not. Where have we heard this before? We're not operating out of our masculinity. We're operating out of our femininity. Listen to the things that he attributes to femininity. Y'all need to leave femininity alone. Y'all don't understand it.
Women all the time. We tend to operate on a female platform. For example, when a woman gets angry,
and then Tweedledee over there in the corner, Charlemagne talking about break that down.
Rather than you trying to understand your queen non-emotionally. So you can't have both people in a relationship with a low emotional IQ. Because
so are you saying, Umar, that women are the ones who have the low emotional IQ typically? Jesus help me. This is the thing that annoys me so much about this talking point that a lot of men like to stick to, right? Okay. So to me, he said a lot of times, but if we were honest, most of the time men are operating from this female platform that he's talking about, right? And by that, we'll get into what he's really saying. But anyway, so saying that both people are being emotional, that's not the problem. Being emotional is not the problem. That's not it. It's being irrational, right? Because women are emotional and they're way more rational than men are, which proves to me that to be rational, you must be emotional. You must have a good command of your emotions. And women do, typically. I'm not saying all women. I'm not saying all men. I'm saying typically women have a good command of their emotions. They express more emotions than men do on average. So I would say that women have a better command of their emotions, which allows them to be more rational because you can't separate the two, right? So when Umar and men like him, because though he's a black man, he sounds very much like every other man on the planet who talks about this. He is saying that women are irrational and men are more rational. Where have we heard that before? Right? We've heard that. That's what all of these misogynistic men say. That men are rational and women are irrational. Okay. Now, he's saying this, and he's trying to make the case that the reason for the demise in a relationship a lot of times and the conflict between men and women is rooted in the fact that men are too irrational. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what I'm getting from it. He's right. That part I agree on. And to the men that argue with me all the time, Umar is saying, if you listen to what he's saying, right, he's partly right, because what he's saying is that men are also very irrational. The problem I have with this, though, is that women aren't irrational. Now, and I'm saying that as a group, of course, there are lots of irrational women. I'm just saying, as a group, women are not irrational. Women make very rational decisions as a group. They do. Historically, we see how men have built this society. We just took command and control of the society. We didn't necessarily build it, but we took control and command of this society, and we steered it in the directions in which that we felt we wanted society to go in, right? And if you look at the world and you look at this and you look at our societies for the last, 500, 600, 700,000 years, what have men done that looks to you to be rational? The destruction of our planet, is that rational? Massive unalivings, massive deaths, murders across the globe. Is that rational? Over what? Resources, over oil, unsustainable power sources. Is that irrational? When we can have sustainable power sources, does that seem rational? That's not, I don't think these are things that women would do. If women were in control of the society, I don't think we would be in these places. I really don't. Historically speaking, it says that we wouldn't be in this place. We would be further along, right? So let's just start at the top, because the top trickles down to the bottom. So men at the top are irrational. Nothing that these men are doing are rational. They are very much short-sighted decisions that only are good for like that group of men that did it for them in that moment. Like slavery only really benefited the men, you know what I'm saying, that did it. I won't say only, but it, like when they invented slavery and they perpetuated slavery, it was really mainly for the men right there. Like they were like, we don't care about the ramifications, the long-term ramifications of slavery. We only care about us stuffing our pockets right now, us hoarding resources right now, right? They didn't care how it was going to end up destroying the planet. They didn't care about any of that. And racism definitely is destroying the planet. Definitely. It's part of it, along with misogyny, right? But they didn't care about that. It's a very short-sighted decision, not very rational. So men prove over and over and over and over again that we are actually the irrational ones. So I'm really tired of hearing men trying to attribute everything, every negative characteristic to, like Umar said, female nature. No. Female platform. No, sir. You don't get to do that, because masculinity, if you look up the definition, masculinity in a nutshell, are characteristics that you typically can attribute to men, right? Characteristics, behaviors that we typically attribute to men. Okay, now take it back to what I was just saying. Historically, men have proven to be irrational, way far more irrational than women. That to me is a characteristic of men, not women. Women are not the emotional ones, or i.e., aka irrational ones. Women aren't the emotional, aka the irrational ones. Men are. Men are the ones who commit 98% of the violence in the world. Men are the ones who rape more than everybody, and murder more than everybody, and pillage more than everybody, and steal more than everybody, and lie more than everybody, and neglect more than everybody. Men do those things, very irrational behaviors. Men are the ones who are disagreeable for the sake of being disagreeable. That's very irrational. Men are. So I'm really, really tired of hearing men just anything negative that we don't like about ourselves, we try to flip it and say, well, that's how women are supposed to act. But that's not how women act. So stop saying that's a female platform. No. That is very much a male platform, sir. That is what males do, not what women do. Knock it off.
Of both people in a home, if you and your
take it back a little.
Non-emotionally. So you can't have both people in
Take it back a little bit.
Not a perfect offering. And to that point, I think black men need to recognize the fact that one of the reasons we have so much conflict with black women is because we don't operate on a masculine platform with our women all the time. We tend to operate on a female platform. For example, when a woman gets angry, rather than you trying to understand your queen non-emotionally. So you can't have both people.
Queen, also a red flag. How you calling these people? How you calling these women queens? But you don't even you just refer to them as women, and or females, and you don't see them as human beings. You skipped over the human being part to jump to the queen part to cover up the fact that you don't actually see them as human beings. Y'all be putting 10 on 2. I'm gonna clock it every time. Y'all be putting 10 on 2. You don't see women as human beings, so to mask that, you go, of course, not only do I see them as human beings, I see them as queens. No, you don't. Start by calling them women and not females. How about that?
rather than you trying to understand your queen non-emotionally. So you can't have both people in a relationship with a low emotional IQ because
you're right. You can't have both people in the relationship with a low emotional IQ. You also can't have one person in the relationship with a low emotional IQ. You know how I know that? Look at the divorce rates. Look at all the breakups. Typically, there's one person in that relationship that has a significantly lower emotional IQ than the other, and that person is the man.
If both people in a home, if you and your wife both have a low emotional IQ, if you and your wife both have a low emotional IQ, y'all going to argue over everything because nobody says, I am not going to emote over this. I'm not going to deal with this with feelings. I'm going to use reason and intelligence. That's what the man is supposed to do.
Yeah.
But that's not what men do. Stop saying what men are supposed to do. Talk about what men actually do. We don't do that. We argue, we nitpick, we gaslight, we lie, we manipulate. Seems to me that's what men is supposed to do. And when I say supposed to do, I'm saying based on what men are taught, that's what men are supposed to do. That's not on accident. That's not even in nature. That's how men are conditioned. We're acting exactly in line with our conditioning from other men. Men conditioned us to act this way.
But guess what we do? Raised by single mothers, many of us, we reflect right back to them that emotional trauma that they throwing on us. So
Cap. Stop blaming mothers for this. This is not, women did not do this to us, sir. Your mama is the person that told you it's okay to cry. Your mama is the one who taught you empathy. Your mama is the one who taught you patience. Your mama is the one who taught you kindness. Your mama did that stuff. Y'all even say it. Father's supposed to be the disciplinarian. Your daddy abused you. Your mama taught you how to appreciate nice things. Your mother taught you that. Your mother taught you unconditional love. Stop lying on these women, Umar.
To them that emotional trauma that they throwing on us. So in essence, you have two females arguing, although one is in a man's body. Black men have to start being masculine.
Females. Yeah, but he sees these women as queens.
Man's body. Black men have to start being masculine and less feminine. All this cattiness.
We are masculine. That's the problem. The problem is masculinity, Umar. We need to be more feminine. We need to be more feminine. I don't believe in either. I don't believe in either. But I'm using your own words. Men need to be more feminine. We need to be more rational. We need to have more control of our emotions. We need to have a higher emotional IQ. We need to practice empathy. We need to practice patience. Those are things that we all know and all think to be characteristics of women typically. Men need to be more nurturing with their children, with the women, with the men in their community. Women, we learn these things from women, bro, not from men. Men did not teach us these things.
This back and forth between black men and black women on the internet, that is feminine and feminine. Masculinity don't operate like that. Masculinity wants to understand where a woman is coming from.
Cap, masculinity wants to oppress women. Masculinity says women are beneath you. That's what masculinity says.
Masculinity wants to then intervene, study himself.
Also, remember what I said before y'all get y'all panties in a bunch, gentlemen. Masculinity is what? Characteristics that we typically can attribute to men. Not what we think men should be like, but characteristics that we observe men actually embody and do, right? Characteristics that they practice, that they live out, whatever you want to say, that they embody, right? Men are oppressive. Men oppress women. Period. That's masculinity. Unwad your panties, gentlemen.
Masculinity wants to understand where a woman is coming from. Masculinity wants to then intervene, study himself, evaluate his behavior.
That's femininity. That's what women do. Women are introspective. Men are not. Umar is a case study of a man who is not introspective at all, because he continuously gets on these platforms and puts his foot in his mouth because he's not introspective.
and try to level up to where she needs him to be. But arguing back and forth with women as a man, that's anti-masculine behavior. What we really need is some testosterone shots. We
got enough testosterone. Some would say we got too much. Listen to the girlies. They're saying the whole reason why all this stuff is happening is because of testosterone. He's saying the opposite.
We need more testosterone because black men are mimicking female behavior emotionally, and they're not even recognizing it.
How do you hear that right there? Was textbook misogyny oozing out of that man's mouth. Oozing. 2 minutes before that, he completely understood racism. He completely understood racism. And like I said earlier, this right here, this example of Umar doing this, yes, black men do this for sure. Black men have a big problem with this, but men have a problem with this in general. In America specifically, I've had many conversations with white men, and they've acknowledged racism. Oh yeah, no, that's wrong. What if I said don't call a woman? What if I said that the N-word is? Oh no, yeah, you can't say the N-word. That white people understand that. Oh, you can't say the N-word, but then that same white man will turn around and call women females. They'll call women 304s. So this is not just what black men do, by the way. Once again, this is something men do. Even when it comes to racism, when it comes to racism, even white men understand racism way better than they understand misogyny. But Umar is a textbook example of a black man who completely understands racism while simultaneously refusing to understand sexism and misogyny. He completely understands the system that is the patriarchy, the system that is racism, but he does not have any clue of the patriarchy. He doesn't think the patriarchy exists. That is toxic. That is harmful. And I'm so disappointed in how often we see a lot of these talking heads get up here and say one thing that we like, one thing that we agree with, something that we agree with, and then no, and then they get you with the bullshit on the back end. Kevin Samuels, they say something that's like obvious, right? Like, yeah, racism is bad, and yeah, all black people suffer from racism. Yes, that's true. All black people have suffered under racism and do suffer from racism. Yep, duh. But what about that misogyny? Oh, no. I'm going to go on a misogynistic rant for 3 minutes. He acknowledged the racism for 15 seconds and then went on a misogynistic rant for the rest of the time he was up there. I'm sorry. I don't believe you, bro. I don't believe in people like this. You want to be a leader of a movement of all people, you better include all people, especially the people that are most oppressed. You better start at the bottom, so to speak, when it comes, or at the top, if you want to say the top of the oppression Olympics, as people will put it. The gold medalists in the Olympics of oppression are black women and feminine presenting black people and black children. They're at the top of the oppression Olympics. So start there. Don't start with black men. Don't start with cishet black men. Don't start with cishet black women. No. Cishet black women. Start with LGBTQIA. Start with feminine presenting people in general. Start with the children. And start with cishet black women, absolutely, because anybody that's feminine presenting, like I said, they're going to get abused. Cishet black women are going to get abused and attacked. Women in general going to get abused and attacked. But although that group should all be together, I'm saying don't start with one. Don't isolate one of those. I think we need all three of those to get addressed at the same time. All feminine presenting people, all cishet black women, and all black children. That's where the fight needs to start. But I'm only addressing this because Umar likes to tout himself as the black thought leader in 2024, and he's everything but that. He is actually a danger and a harm to the black community, especially when he talks like this. This is destructive and corrosive. And he got a lot of black men looking up to him. And he got a lot of black men that buys into this nonsense. And some black women too. because they got a lot of internalized misogyny, but mostly black men. We at some point in time, y'all, we got to pick a struggle, man. We got to get on the right side of things. We got to get on the right side of things. I appreciate y'all joining me and watching the video.